Hi, it's the Irish Gypsy here to do your January 2016 mid-month readings. I continue to use the Gilded Tarot deck, and even though we are focusing more on the last half of the month than the first half of the month or the month in general, I'm still going to be using the same 8-card spread to give as in-depth a look as possible to see what the remainder of the month looks like for us. These are general readings, so if they do not apply or resonate the same with everyone who watches them, I suggest you check your rising and your moon sign as well. And a special thank you, as always, to those of you who have allowed me to do personal readings for you. You've been keeping me very busy, and it's an honor and a pleasure to meet each and every one of you, and I won't forget either yourselves or your stories. And thank you to those of you who continue to watch and listen and subscribe to my channel. Your feedback and comments have, for the most part, been most rewarding and very positive. So thank you. And just a little bit of information, I am offering 2016 yearly overviews and outlooks in the form of 60-minute and 90-minute personal readings. So if you are interested in those, again, just click on the About button on my channel's homepage, or you can email me at maggie1mcguire@gmail.com. So let's get right into this reading. This is for Sagittarius for January 2016, mid-month. My fun-loving Sagittarians, what does the remainder of the month of January 2016 hold for you? Sagittarius, January 2016, mid-month. Okay. We begin with the Knight of Wands, followed by the Ace of Wands, the Four of Swords, followed by the Four of Pentacles, the Ten of Swords, followed by the Seven of Cups, the World card, followed by the Justice card, and as an overall theme and advice for the month, I pull a card from the bottom of the deck, and you have the Moon card. I apologize for any long pauses during any of my readings. As those of you who read know, sometimes it takes a minute or two to put together the impressions and intuition and images that you get. So let's begin. We have the Knight of Wands, followed by the Ace of Wands. And I'm feeling first and foremost right off the bat that for the majority of you, this Knight of Wands is going to represent yourself. Wands, the element being fire or air, fire and air, and wands representing, pointing to change, movement, action, power. The Knight of Wands being the bringers of the tarot deck. And I have just a very strong feeling for the majority of you Sagittarians out there, this is going to represent you, as you are a fire sign as well. For some of you, a smaller portion of you, this could represent somebody, another individual in your life. It could be a Leo, Sagittarius, or an Aries, or someone who manifests the character traits of the fire signs. The Knight of Wands is quite a fiery, passionate individual, can be quite driven, very dedicated, very focused, and this card also represents can represent creativity and intuition. This would be somebody who, if this represents another individual in your life, this could be somebody who is bringing something to you that is quite inspirational and comes with a certain amount of passion and enthusiasm and excitement. Now, it's paired with the Ace of Wands, which is another Wands card. And aces represent new beginnings, new seeds of things, and seeds still need to be planted and nourished and taken care of so that they can come to fruition. But the Ace of Wands represents the opportunity for a new beginning in something. And I feel like for the majority of you, this is going to represent a breakthrough of something, a breakthrough, a very powerful sort of breakthrough, and one that is very inspirational. And what I'm actually getting with the coupling of this card, Sagittarius, is that something is actually trying to break through, that you're in a situation or a relationship of some kind where I feel like there's a certain amount of stagnancy in it, or feeling of being stuck. And the next coupling of cards kind of underscores that, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But I feel, Sagittarius, like, and I feel this has actually been going on for a while for the majority of you, that you find yourself in a situation, a relationship, where there's a certain level of stagnancy or a feeling of being stuck, and something is occurring during the month of January, maybe around the mid-month time, where there's some kind of breakthrough trying to come through. Um, and for some of you, this is going to represent somebody actually coming to you and either having a conversation with you, talking to you, bringing you some kind of message or insight or knowledge of a new way of looking at something. And it feels very strong, almost pushy. And for the majority of you, this is just going to feel like you're, and the feeling that I'm getting is kind of an inner sense, an inner compulsion, an inner drive to break through something and to see something in a different way, to cut away and have a breakthrough in something to do with the way that you're looking at something or something that you're stuck in. Now, the next combination of cards, we have the Four of Swords paired with the Four of Pentacles. And four is a number that denotes stability, structure, balance. But more than one in the reading, I actually feel like the two of these together are actually representing what I was speaking about in terms of a sense of stagnation or a sense of being stuck. Now, the Four of Swords represents kind of a waiting period, a timeout, respite sort of period. Swords, the element being that of air, and swords is a suit that points towards our thoughts, our ways of thinking, our perspective, our logic, and our reasoning. And you can see here that this man is girded for battle. He is taking a time out from it, however, whether he's just finished a battle or he's taking a time out in the middle of a battle. He's not currently engaged with the swords that are pointing down at him, nor the one that is resting close by his hand should he need them. This is a card that speaks to taking a time out and taking a reprieve for some much needed respite and healing. And this card also points to going within and going through a reflective assessment period. It's a rather passive card. It can also speak of being in a place, Sagittarius, where you feel as if you need a break from something, as if you need a respite from something, which may or may not resonate for some of you. Now, it's paired with the Four of Pentacles, which is a card, I've heard it referred to as the Miser card, but I think that the deeper underlying meaning is a card of holding on, and of holding on sometimes too tightly to something. You can see in this card, this man is holding on to his Four Pentacles very tightly, and he's not willing to let them go out of fear, perhaps, of losing all of them, or if he opens his arms up to share or to let some of them go, that he's going to be left with nothing. Pentacles, the element of this suit is earth, and Pentacles is a suit that typically points to things in our tangible world around us, like money, finances, resources. It can point to job and career as well. But the feeling I get when both of these are put together is a sense of, this could play out differently for different Sagittarians who are watching out there. This could be, but overall, I'm getting just kind of the sense of being stuck in something. And I feel like for some of you, you've been holding on to something for quite some time in a situation or a relationship. And the feeling that I'm getting is that what you're holding on to and what you're stuck in is a way of looking at it, the way that you think and feel about this situation or this relationship. And up until now, you have not been willing to look at it a different way or take anybody else's advice, which may have been offered to you about it, about either dealing with it a different way or walking away from it. It feels like you're kind of very intentionally and stubbornly kind of holding on to something that I feel is not or has not been serving you or is no longer serving you. And it looks like it's time to take a step back from that, to reflect, to assess. And for some of you, this is going to reflect in that you've been holding on to something so tightly and bound by your fears and what's going to happen if you let go or let your arms open and let some of these pentacles fall, that you've really put yourself in a place of mental and emotional exhaustion, perhaps even physical exhaustion as well. And it's really time for you to let go, to loosen up a bit, um, to consider taking a time out, and either to consider letting go or consider looking at this thing from a different viewpoint. This combination of cards speaks to me of taking a time out to look at what is no longer serving you and making a decision to move on or to cut certain things out of your life and perhaps even certain people as well. And this combination of cards also speaks to me quite strongly of just being stuck in this place, a feeling of stagnation, and the sense that I get is that you've been in it for quite some time, but that you're somewhere in the first half of the month or around the mid-month, it feels like there's some kind of breakthrough wanting to happen, something that's trying to force its way to your conscious mind, and perhaps for some of you, again, this could be somebody else who's also trying quite forcefully to get you to look at something in a different way, to have a breakthrough of some kind with this situation or relationship, which seems to be not serving you very well. That you're not in a place within it that you are being nourished or that you can flourish. Now, that's followed by the Ten of Swords and the Seven of Cups. Now, the Ten of Swords tends to represent the culmination of something, the ending of a cycle, excuse me. And in the depictions in the artwork on other tarot decks, I've seen these swords actually piercing the individual's body and a little bit of blood in the snow. But in this particular one, it just shows the 10 swords all pointing down at this person who is face down in the ground. And this card can point to actually being stabbed in the back by someone. It can point to a sense of being betrayed by somebody. I kind of relate this to the Three of Swords card too, although that's a sort of a more clear heartbreak and heartache and betrayal. And for some of you, you're going to feel like, oh, maybe one of the reasons why you've been holding on so tightly to this situation or relationship is because either you're afraid of this state of mind occurring if you let something go, or this is something that's happened to you in your past, and that's the reason why you're holding on so tightly and um, you're walled off so tightly, and you're so guarded. The Four of Swords also speaks to being in a place where you really need to let your defenses down and open your heart to trust again. But it looks like that you've experienced or are experiencing a sense of great disappointment or a sense of betrayal and a sense of loss. But the brighter side to this card, Sagittarius, is that this is the end of something. It's not going to get any worse. Either the worst has already happened, or it's not going to repeat itself. As you can see in the environment in this card, whatever violence has occurred or whatever traumatic or cataclysmic event has occurred in this place, even though this man for the time being is face down in the ground, you can see that the animals are returning to the scene. The sun is rising in the background. There is a light shining through the swords from the sky going down to him. And this card, the secondary piece of advice to this card is that the worst is over, and better days are coming, and tomorrow is always coming again, and that you can have hope and faith in that. Tens, again, being the wrapping up of a cycle and the ending of something, the wrapping up of something. Now, it's paired with the Seven of Cups. Cups, the element being that of water, and cups is a suit that point to love, relationships, how we relate to other people. It's an emotional suit. And the Seven of Cups, I always have seen as the fantasy illusion card. This can represent having many choices in your life, many distractions in your life, but it speaks to me most loudly, particularly in this reading, of fantasy and illusion, of being distracted by too many things which are not grounded in reality. As you can see, there's all sorts of, in these Seven Cups, there's all sorts of lovely things and possibilities coming out of each cup. And I think paired with the Ten of Swords, Sagittarius, excuse me, my throat is getting hoarse today. I feel like the reason that for some of you this is going to resonate, that the reason that you find yourself in a position where you feel as if you've been betrayed or heartbroken in some way, you've just suffered a very deep kind of emotional pain and a great disappointment, is that you, whatever this situation or relationship was that you found yourself feeling this way in, you were not being realistic about what it really was. And I feel like that's really resonating with the first two coupling of cards, that something is trying to make, there's some kind of truth or breakthrough or intuitive breakthrough that's trying to occur within you to get you to wake up to see something. But it feels like you are or have been up until now very stuck in a certain mind frame, a certain way of looking at it, and you're just not willing to let go of it. For some of you, this is going to mean that you've been just very guarded and very closed off, and to the point where you're really just exhausted, and it's time to let go. It's time to open up a bit, and that for some of you, I also feel like this is going to represent, hanging on to this mind frame or this this set of thinking, this way of thinking, because of heartbreak that you've suffered, and uh, and it has something to do with not being realistic about the situation. You found yourself in a situation where you were betrayed and you're not, or hurt somehow very deeply, and it wasn't really reality based. You weren't looking at it in a very grounded sort of way, and it has led to heartbreak of some kind. And for some of you, this is going to represent fears too, that if you do that, one of the reasons you hold yourself so tightly, that you're hanging on so much, that you're so walled off and closed up, I feel, is that you have fears that if you allow yourself to um, to open out, particularly emotionally, to another person again, that it's going to lead you to be in this place where you're being unrealistic, and you're really afraid that of being in this fantasy illusionary sort of world again. It's going to lead to heartbreak for you. And I also what just crossed my mind just now too is that there is a possibility that keeping yourself in this position of being stuck and being stagnant, and of refusing to take a step back and perhaps look at the situation or relationship in a different way, is going to lead you eventually to, um, well, not even eventually, because this is a mid-month reading, it represents kind of the space of a few weeks. There is a strong potential for it to lead you to a place where you feel really quite greatly disappointed or quite hurt or even shattered, because you're not being very grounded about the situation or relationship. Now, we end with the two very lovely cards. We end with the World card paired with the Justice card. And the World card can represent being in a place where you have reached the end of an achievement of something. The World card is also the last card in the Major Arcana deck, which is kind of interesting, following the Ten of Swords, which is a card whose number signifies, again, the end of a cycle, the culmination of something. The World card can represent an individual who has reached, after a long road of experience and trial and error, has reached a point where they feel very integrated, that they've reached kind of the highest level of achievement. They've just gotten to a place in their life where everything that they've been through and everything that they've experienced has culminated in a real deep and true sense of wisdom and compassion, and of being grounded, and of seeing things very realistically. And it's a very positive card, and it just speaks of a sense of whole integration of a person's actual self. Now, it's paired with the Justice card, which is a card that can represent an actual legal decision. Perhaps some of you have been struggling through a court case of some kind, and the end result looks like it's going to be a positive one for you, and it's going to put you in a place where you feel like things have been very fair, and it's worked out in a way that you feel like you're getting justice, that the outcome is going to be fair, because that's what justice implies. Justice implies, well, it doesn't imply. You can see that the woman here who represents justice is blindfolded. Justice being blind, as the saying goes, which means that the outcome is going to be fair and just, because it relies solely and completely on the actions and decisions of the people involved. This is a card that says uh, what you sow is what you're going to reap. Now, paired with the World card, it looks like, and what I feel too is that it looks like at or by the end of the month, or perhaps going into the beginning of February, Sagittarius, that it looks like you're actually going to make a decision about this situation or relationship that you've been kind of stuck in, or one that it feels it hasn't been serving you very well. And you're going to make a decision to do the right thing or do what's right for you, and cut certain situations or things or people out of your life so that you can find yourself in this place where you finally are able to feel a sense of integration and of wholeness within yourself again. For some of you too, this interestingly enough, although I think this might be for a much smaller portion of you, this combination of cards can speak to uh, uh, being in a teaching position or a leading position that's instructional in some way. So it could be that this path that you've led down puts you also in a position where you are able to use your experiences and the wisdom and knowledge that you have gained in a way, in some position that you're actually benefiting other people. Other people are benefiting from your experience and your wisdom of having walked down this difficult path. But I think for the majority of you, it's going to represent finding yourself in this place at the end of the month or going into February where you make a decision to do what you know and believe is the right thing to do for you, so that you can put yourself on a path to feeling a sense of peace and of whole integration, and allow the experiences that you've had, even though it looks like some of them have been challenging and painful and there's a certain amount of fear attached to it, allow the lessons that you gain and the wisdom and clarity and insight that you gain uh, uh, add to who you are as a as a person in your spiritual growth and your own elevation as a human being, rather than than these experiences, challenging and painful as they may be, keep you in a place where you're closed off and you view them as negative instead of them adding to your well of wisdom and experience, as it were. So I'm not sure how that's going to, I think it's going to resonate in different ways for different people. But it's a very positive coupling of cards. But the cautionary piece of advice is that it's actually kind of dependent on the decisions and actions you take. Looks like it's going to be solely dependent on the decisions and actions that you take. And the advice would be to do what you know to be right and do what you know to be good and authentic to who you are. Now, the card that you got as the overall theme and advice for the month is the Moon card. And I think that points more towards the majority of this process rather than the World and the Justice card at the end, although the World card can also speak to needing to have answers to be able to put things together. The Moon card is another major arcana card, and you have three in this reading. The Moon card can often represent not having all the information you need or feeling like you don't have all the information you need. Things can look very different by the light of the moon than they do by the light of the sun. In the moon, there's a lot of hidden recesses and shadowy corners, and this card can point to feeling like you don't have everything you need in which to make a decision, and just feeling confused. And the sense that I'm getting is feeling like you're just getting too much confusing information from the outside world, um, and needing to go within and trust your own intuition with which to make a decision, because you're just not getting enough external information, or the information you're getting is too contradictory and too confusing. I'm kind of feeling a connection back to the Four of Swords here about needing to take whatever this situation or relationship is, needing to take a timeout, a respite period to go within, or perhaps to even seek uh, counsel. There's also a theme of seeking some kind of divine intuition or prayer if you're a praying sort of person. But it speaks of just inner reflection and inner assessment with which to find a path to move through this situation, because whatever you're getting externally is too confusing or too contradictory. Um, so as your overall theme, and I think piece of advice to this, the strong piece of advice is to go within and see what your intuition and your sense of divine guidance from whatever structure that is for you can tell you about the best way, the path to walk through this, so that you come to the end of it feeling as if no matter what occurred, that you feel like you did the right thing, that regardless of how maybe other people or the situation plays out outside of you, that you feel at the end of the day that you acted with integrity and honesty, and that you can hold yourself in that. Um, so Sagittarius, what an interesting reading. It looks as if you have a bit of a challenging path to walk through, but it looks like at the end, going within and seeking your own intuition and guidance is going to be what carries you through and makes everything clear on your path. I would say this is definitely a month uh, to trust in your own intuition. Seek guidance from trusted people if you want to, but it looks like there's a chance that you may get information that's more confusing and contradictory and not all that helpful. But it feels like something's really trying to make a breakthrough for you this month in a situation. And and also, as you come through this, and when you come through this, it looks like if you find yourself in a position where you allow yourself to look back at this as something that you have gained extra wisdom and insight from, then that can benefit other people too as well. But basically, a month of trusting your own intuition and going within, because usually we know inside what's the best path to take, even though aspects of it of carrying it out might be difficult. So Sagittarius, I hope that you enjoyed this reading and that it resonated with you in some way, or that it at least gave you a little bit of food for thought and some wisdom and insight. And I look forward to seeing you in February 2016 for the February readings. And if you would like a personal extension of this reading or would like to schedule a personal reading with me, just click on the About button and that'll give you the information that you need and how best to contact me. So until I see you again, I wish you joy, peace, and a happy life.